Hello and welcome to The Morning Bean, a show not about coffee. Instead, we enjoy our coffee while discussing current events. I'm your host, Denny London, and today's episode is called J6 Prisoners equals A6 Violations. The proof is in the pudding, CornPop. Before we jump into the downfall of society and possibly the next plandemic, please consider giving the show a follow and a 5-star review. It really helps with those crazy robot algorithms. Algorithms. It is official. All of the 3-letter organizations are compromised. The FBI, the CIA, and the CDC, whom I despise the most, those are the big 3 that come to mind. The other big 3 that comes to mind would be the 2010 Miami Heat team. You know, the one with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Like a Bosch? That was fun. That team really started the downfall of the NBA, in my humble opinion. Basically, all the problems in life can be traced back to LeBron James. The past 2.5 years have confirmed that the FBI, CIA, and the CDC are literally an extension of the Democratic Party. Or as I might refer to them for now and forever, the Democratic Party. No? I don't know. No longer are these organizations fair and balanced. The swamp is just too deep and corrupt. When Trump would say that, I didn't fully believe it, but it's actually sickening. And Trump was trying to drain it, but the left used these arms to disarm his presidency. And some of our leftist friends and family members may want examples to back this claim up. That's a really easy rebuttal. Impeachment hoax number 1, aka Russiagate, fake. And then impeachment hoax number 2, the insurrection, which we'll get into a little bit later. Now, let's be honest. There's too much money going around. Government is too big, and it's time to defund them. Yes, I'm all for defunding some things. Time to get back to the basics, folks. Our founding fathers wanted the states to have the majority power, not some oligarchs and overlords at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who used their power to line their pockets with international money laundering or by playing the stock market. That's not what government is for. We need term limits, and we need new leaders. There's no reason that somebody should be in government for 40 years on a salary that's $100,000 a year. Let's just say that. I think that's average. And they're worth $90 million. That makes zero sense. They're using the information they get within Congress to manipulate the stock market and just to have the perfect buy. I'm looking at you, Nancy. On a quick side note, fuck the FDA. Such a corrupt organization where 45% of their budget comes from Big Pharma, the same companies whom they're supposed to be regulating. Now that is a conflict of interest. The FDA has an incentive to approve new medications and vaccines in order to, you guessed it, line their pockets. As Jack Posobiec would say, are you paying attention yet? Now buckle up. I'm hot this week if you can't tell already. Before we jump into some quick ones, let's start with 3 Biden tweets that really grinded my gears. This is, you probably shouldn't have tweeted that, Mega Edition. On June 4th, 2022, President Biden tweeted, "I led the world to coordinate the largest release from global oil reserves in history, directed the sale of gasoline using homegrown biofuels this summer and more. These actions have already helped to blunt what would have been an even larger Putin price hike." Putin. Always blaming somebody else, Joe, but you know what? Thank goodness the problem that you caused did not get worse by releasing our reserves, which are meant for times of war or times of emergency. I guess we are we do have a proxy war with Russia, so maybe that's it. Another tweet that really grinded my gears was on June 3rd, 2022. He said, "We should repeal the liability shield that often protects gun manufacturers from being sued for the death and destruction caused by their weapons. They're the only industry in the country that has this kind of immunity. It's outrageous. It must end." 2 things. 2 comments, Mr. President. I can't sue a car manufacturer if myself or a family member gets injured from driving them under the influence, or if another driver runs into me when they're under the influence as well. So there's that. Let me remind you, the gosh darn, excuse my language, the gosh darn companies that make the COVID shot that our government, big tech, and mainstream media push are immune from being sued because it's not FDA approved or regulated. Hence why you can't get these shots from an actual doctor. You have to go to a pharmacy. Every time I see a commercial thanking the COVID-19 vaccine, I spit in disgust, hapa, hapa, and then immediately get yelled at by my wife for spitting in the living room. The last tweet we're going to take a look at was from June 6th, 2022. He said, "At the time I took office about 16 months ago, the economy had stalled and COVID was out of control. Today, thanks to the economic plan and the vaccination plan that my administration put into action," I'm going to need strength. Today, thanks to the economic plan and the vaccination plan that my administration put into action, America has achieved the most robust recovery in modern history. Now, that's just 3 tweets in a 5-day period. It's a miracle my gears still exist. If you want some free entertainment, please consider joining me and the 20 million bots that follow President Joseph R. You done being a tyrant yet, Biden. Let me remind you that we are still missing about 2 to 3 million people in jobs from the workforce compared to 2019. But that's none of my business. Insert Kermit the Frog sipping tea emoji. You know what? Let's allow him to take credit for this flawed vaccine and crumbling economy and wild inflation. All right, let's dive into 3 quick ones. What is a woman? That's all I want to know. Been wondering it since I was a teenage boy. What is a woman? Well, no need to fret. Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire have launched a brand new documentary titled, What is a Woman? For those who don't know, Matt Walsh has a great beard and a very dry sense of humor, something I could respect. The purpose of the documentary is to travel the country and world, asking various people from different walks of life, which shouldn't be a controversial question, but for some reason it is, what is a woman? There's a few moments that will really pull your heartstrings and a few that will make you say, what the F, to your TV. One moment that really stands out to me that I can remember is when a gender surgeon, I'm not sure what the official title for this criminal is, advised that she did gender reassignment surgery on what was at the time a 16-year-old girl. Think back to when you were 16. Were you capable of making a life-altering decision like that? Absolutely not. Another moment that comes to mind was when Matt Walsh interviewed a 50-something-year-old man who used to be a woman. He, which is a proper pronoun to use now, explains the pain and suffering caused by his transition from female to male, and how the pharmaceutical companies make about $1 million per transition, while at the same time not explaining the unethical side effects on their treatments, medications, and surgeries. So please consider joining the Daily Wire to check out this content. They always have some kind of promo code going on their website. They also have other personalities on there like Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. The second quick one. This week, in the past 7 days, maybe God's punishing me for whatever reason, but I was bit by a spider, I was stung by a bee, and then my basset hound, aka the Bean, bit my hand. Accident prone over here. Lucky that we got this episode out. And our last quick one. Liar Pfizer, someone should be fired. Honestly, being fired isn't enough. Somebody should be charged. This is criminal, ladies and gentlemen. Dossier.substack.com broke some news late last week in a post titled Ghost Shot. Pfizer quietly admits it will never manufacture original FDA-approved COVID vaccines. Comornity is how you pronounce it. I'll do my best while reading through this. But the dossier reports the August 23rd, 2021 FDA approval of Pfizer's Comornity vaccine was a cause for celebration, marked as a turning point in the battle against COVID-19. The announcement was highly publicized by the Biden administration with the clear intention to extinguish vaccine hesitancy and boost uptake. It was celebrated as a cause for national relief, and many Americans at their local pharmacies, under the impression via government and pharmaceutical propaganda that they were receiving an FDA approved COVID vaccine. Yet, that legal, distinct product as we know it never existed, and now we know via Pfizer that it never will exist. Comirnaty is a legal distinct product from the emergency use authorization shots and has never made its way to market. For months on end, no such vaccine has ever become available. Those who received the Pfizer shots have been injected with the emergency use authorization version of the shots. The information operation succeeded. There is indeed an FDA approved vaccine, at least on paper, but you couldn't get it. When originally confronted with this ordeal, Pfizer labeled this issue an inventory question that had nothing to do with the legal distinction between an experimental EUA product and FDA approved vaccine. Up until just weeks ago, this was the statement on CDC website via Pfizer. Pfizer received FDA BLA license on 8/23/2021 for its COVID-19 vaccine for use in individuals 16 and older, Comirnaty. I told you I'll do my Comirnaty. That's it, Comirnaty. At that time, the FDA published a BLA package insert that included the approved new COVID-19 vaccine trade name, Comirnaty, and listed 2 new NDCs and images of labels with the new trade name. At present, Pfizer does not plan to produce any product with these new NDCs and labels over the next few months, while EUA authorized product is still available and being made available for US distribution. And then in May, Pfizer updated its statement. Pfizer received initial FDA BLA license on 8/23/2021 for its COVID-19 vaccine for use in individuals 16 and older, Comirnaty. I'm getting good at that. At that time, the FDA published a BLA package insert that included the new approved new COVID-19 vaccine trade name, Comirnaty, and listed 2 new NDCs. These NDCs will not be manufactured. Only NDCs for the subsequently BLA approved trisucrose formulation will be produced. They lied. It is never going to come out. And back in the day, people were trying to call Pfizer out on this, that you can't get this vaccine. They said they were going to pharmacies and they couldn't get it. And they were censored on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, all the social medias. They were censored. Even the USA Today fact-checked it back in October of 2021, saying that it was false and that this Comirnaty was available. They said, based on our research, we rate false the claim that Pfizer's FDA-approved coronavirus vaccine is not yet available in the U.S. The agency approved the vaccine for most Americans in August, and more than 104 million people have received 2 doses. First and foremost, that's 2 different things. The old Pfizer shot that was not FDA approved and the new one. These fact checkers are mere opinions and their propaganda. Facebook even had to admit it in December of 2021 in court. Yet some people still think of them as the golden standard, the golden rule, and that they're true. I'm jealous. The left is so fantastic at branding and language and controlling the narrative, and hopefully the right can start doing the same. Now on to our main story. The Hill reports. Schiff says January 6 hearings will show multi-pronged effort to overturn a presidential election. Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat, California, a member of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack at the Capitol, said Wednesday that the panel's upcoming hearing will show a multi-pronged effort to overturn the presidential election. You said that in the title. Why do you have to say it again in the article? I already read that. Schiff said in a Twitter thread that the panel's first hearing, held in prime time on Thursday, today, will present new information on the riot, adding the committee hopes to demonstrate how a group of individuals tried to overturn an election. We'll demonstrate the multi-pronged effort to overturn a presidential election, how one strategy to subvert the election led to another. culminating in a violent attack on our democracy, Schiff said in a tweet. It's an important story, and one that must be told to ensure that it never happens again. Unless it's a BLM riot or an Antifa riot, that's okay. Schiff also said that he hopes the panel's findings and the series of hearings on the attack will show the public how close we came to losing our democracy and why it's still deeply at risk. January 6th can never end for these people. That's all they got. They got January 6th, they got pro-abortion, and pro-gun control. The article continues, we'll provide details of the effort to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power. He added, and what we must do to protect our democracy now. The January 6 panel has said it will present previously unreleased material during its hearing on Thursday, scheduled to begin at 8 p.m. Eastern Prime Time. As always, I got you guys, ladies and gentlemen. I could spare you this clown show that's going to happen during prime time today. Here's what they're going to tell you during this primetime hearing. Orange man bad, Joe Biden good. They'll say Donald Trump's name should only be spoken with a shudder in your voice and legally should have a vulgar word prior to his name. He was the general in this terrible attack on democracy. J6 was worse than Pearl Harbor, World War II, COVID, monkeypox, and 9/11 combined. He incited, and he should pay. Many members of Congress were in on the insurrection. This is what they're going to say. Many members of Congress were in on the insurrection, and they should be disqualified and impeached. This includes Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they said all Republicans must be expelled from government and put on Oak Island, never to return until they find a buried treasure that doesn't exist. It's going to be tough for them to push this narrative, but they're going to say that police are now heroes, even though they spent 2 years calling them racist, murderers, and white supremacists, regardless of skin color. Here's the important stuff. Here's what they're not going to tell you. What they won't tell you. The average American doesn't care about January 6th. Fox News isn't even going to air it. And as we've seen with the ratings last week, Fox News gets more viewers than CNN and MSNBC combined. I'm going to watch it, of course, and probably sip a few Coors Lights here and there during the situation. Maybe I'll come up with a little drinking game to play. But your average person doesn't care. We know what happened. I mean, we watched it live on TV, and everybody at once said, whoa, that's weird. The cops are letting them in. And I have proof that the average American doesn't care. You know, I always do. I always come with receipts. There was a poll done by a local newspaper around here called The Vindicator in Northeast Ohio. It asked its readers, will you watch the January 6 hearings? 29% said yes, and 71% no. Proof is in the pudding, CornPop. What they won't tell you. They are not going to tell you that on January 4th, 2020, shitbag Donald Trump gave approval for 20,000 National Guardsmen. Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of D.C. said it wasn't necessary. They didn't want the troops. And I only added shitbag before his name because of the new rule when referring to the Donald. This one's important. The thing about Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is off limits to this unselect, unconstitutional committee because of what I just said. She is the reason a bunch of people were able to be let into the Capitol, walk through freely, because she refused to get the National Guardsmen, the security that Donald Trump knew was necessary based on the amount of people that were going to be there. There's always going to be bad actors and bad apples in the bunch that will do stupid shit, as we saw that day. The only person who died by the hands of anyone on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt. And it was from a Capitol police officer. A Capitol police officer who executed her in a hallway. Video has since emerged showing that she was being pushed into a wall, and then she jumped through a broken door to safety, and then from there, this pathetic police officer shot her in the neck. Keep in mind, this woman was a veteran, was about 5'2", so he could have restrained her and put her in handcuffs at that point if he considered her to be rowdy at that time. But I think they wanted to make an example. The cop's name wasn't released for 7 months, and it was only because he came out on his own. His name is Michael Bird, and he's a weak piece of garbage. Now, how long did it take for them to release Derek Chauvin's name? I think we knew his name as the situation was going down. This committee, they are a committee of clown politicians, a CCP. That's 2 weeks in a row making the CCP connection. They are just trying to prosecute their political opponents via government overreach. The most egregious thing they've done so far, well, I guess it's just the most recent thing. The whole thing's egregious. They arrested Peter Navarro at the airport. The Daily Wire has the info for us. In an article titled, "Trying to Intimidate Me? Peter Navarro Rips January 6th Committee DOJ After Indictment." Former Trump White House advisor Peter Navarro made a defiant statement outside a Washington, D.C. courthouse on Friday after he was arrested by the FBI, one of those three-letter people we were talking about earlier, for contempt in Congress. A grand jury indicted Navarro on Friday on 2 charges of contempt of Congress for allegedly failing to comply with the subpoena from the House committee investigating the riot at the Capitol on January 6th. Navarro said FBI agents arrested him as he was boarding a plane to Nashville. Congress has weaponized the investigatory powers of Congress in a way which is unconstitutional, Navarro said Friday after a court hearing on the indictment. The people of America need to understand. Congress has the right to investigate, but only for a non-punitive, so no punishment, legislative purposes. What the committee is doing is investigating for punitive purposes, to punish people. Navarro repeatedly criticized his treatment by the January 6th committee, President Joe Biden's Justice Department, and the FBI. Navarro said that the FBI had disregarded his attempts to an offer to cooperate with agents on legal issues stemming from the committee's subpoena. Instead, the agents intercepted him as he was boarding a plane to Nashville to appear on former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee's television show. I don't know why I said that weird TV show. They also, not only did they handcuff Peter Navarro, they put him in chains. Like, they shackled his leg. He's a 72-year-old man. He's not a dangerous person. The only thing dangerous about him, I guess, in their eyes, is that he is a Trump person. You know, he worked for Trump. So let's just recap the past couple months. First, they wanted to take away the First Amendment, your freedom of speech, with the Disinformation Board, aka the Ministry of Truth. Now they want to take away your right to bear arms, the Second Amendment, while at the same time defunding the police because, you know, criminals follow the law. And something I just realized, and I'm surprised more aren't reporting on this or making this connection. If they did, I missed it. The J6 political prisoners are being refused a speedy trial. There's an amendment for that, you know. Ironically, the Sixth Amendment, and it reads, "In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and the district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense." These prisoners have not had a speedy trial. They've been in jail, solitary confinement, since like January, February of 2020. Some of them 18 months. That is unacceptable in this country. Only one other time in history has America done this to their own citizens. And I'm going to make that connection. It's some forgotten, dark American history. Did you know that the Japanese were put in containment camps during World War II? Google it. DuckDuckGo it. They did. They were Japanese internment camps. History.com has a whole section about it. Japanese internment camps were established during World War II by President Franklin D. Roosevelt through his Executive Order 9066. From 1942 to 1945, it was the policy of the U.S. government that people of Japanese descent, including U.S. citizens, would be incarcerated in isolated camps. Sound similar? Sound familiar? Are you paying attention yet? On February 19th, 1942, shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor by Japanese forces, Franklin Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which, with the stated intention of preventing espionage on American shores. Military zones were created in California, Washington, and Oregon, states with the largest population of Japanese Americans. Then Roosevelt's executive order forcibly removed Americans of Japanese ancestry from their homes. Executive Order 9066 affected the lives of about 120,000 people, the majority of whom were American citizens. Obviously, we know this was wrong for America to do. And we know that America hasn't always been sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. Now, what happened with these Japanese Americans is they got reparations. They got money for the wrongdoing of our government. The last Japanese internment camp closed in March 1946. President Gerald Ford officially repealed the Executive Order 9066 in 1976. And in 1988, Congress issued a formal apology and passed the Civil Liberties Act, awarding $20,000 each to over 80,000 Japanese Americans as reparations for their treatment. So the J6 prisoners, there's not 120,000 of them, but they're still being held against their will, unconstitutionally, and the Sixth Amendment is not being taken into consideration. So you know what? They deserve reparations. But the committee won't talk about that. All right, let's take a look at some cable news ratings via one of my favorite Twitter pages, @RoadMN. This is for Tuesday, June 7th. And the top 1 through 17 are all Fox News, all with over 1.3 million viewers. The first one that's not Fox News is the 18th spot, and it's The Last Word with L. O'Donnell, 10 p.m. slot, MSNBC. We don't see CNN until 32nd overall, and Anderson Cooper, 360, has 642,000 people watching. Compare that to The 5, which is number 1 for Tuesday. They have 3.3 million viewers, and Tucker Carlson has 3 million. So my weekly reminder to all of you that you are the majority. All right, I want to thank you so much for checking out the show today. If you enjoyed it, tell a friend. In fact, I think you and your hypothetical friend should give it a follow. New episodes every Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern. You can also hit me up on Getter, Twitter, or Truth Social @DennyLondon. We can continue the conversation there. Feel free to send me topics that are worth looking into. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. God bless, and cue the music.